Is it recording? Yes, it is. Alrighty. So standard body paragraph form with past terms. As I told you guys yesterday, we are going to kind of move forward. We're moving away from some of the terms that you learned freshman year. We're kind of scaling it up a notch so that you guys can get used to these CASP and SAT terms so that when you see them, in fact, we were talking yesterday, and in college, you will see these same terms. So I want to make sure that you guys are familiar with them, okay? What do you guys know already about writing a paragraph? What are some of the terms that come to mind? Claim, good. Evidence. Topic, reasons. Main idea, beautiful. Okay, so those are all terms that we use, that we refer to in writing, and we will be referring to those, like I said, from here on out through the rest of your high school career at the very least. So we are moving on, which is why we're focusing on these yellow boxes more than the white ones, but they mean the same thing. So if we were talking last year, you guys learned quite a bit about topic sentence. It's the same thing this year, except that we are calling it, that's an arrow, believe it or not, we're calling it a main idea. Thesis statement as well. A thesis statement, it's the same idea, same notion, except that now we're referring to it as a claim. And the same thing with a concrete detail. Instead of calling it a concrete detail or a CD, they're now called reasons or evidence. Where do we get the reasons or evidence from? The text, right? Depending on what you're reading. It could be a poem, a play, an article, a short story, a novel. That's where you pull your quotes from. Remember that whenever you are pulling quotes, you need to copy it exactly how it is. Because we can't misquote. We can't say that someone else said something, change their words, and then put it in our writing and cite them. Everybody got it? So we're copying word for word whenever we're looking for our reasons and evidence and embedding those into our essays. Transitional phrase. What's the most popular transitional phrase? For example, yeah. And this year, like I told you guys with the last essay, we're going to try to move away from that a little bit. For example is the most common one. I'm giving you guys a list with some more transitional phrases so that you guys can kind of step it up and vary your sentences a little bit more. A lead-in. Remember that a lead-in provides context. I like to say that it gives the who and the what. We'll get into that in a bit. Commentary. Commentary is now what we call an explanation. Where do we get the explanation from? Yourselves, your brain, right? So this is all you. You do not find it in a text. That would be plagiarism. Your explanation is how you are analyzing the quotes that you pull to match them up with the prompt, whatever I'm asking you to write about. Citation. Remember that a citation is just you citing your sources. You're stating where you got that quote from. And then concluding sentence is very similar. I think it should be very identifiable on the CASP or SAT. We're now calling the concluding sentence a closing sentence. Any questions about this slide? So again, the ones in the white squares, they're not wrong, but I want to make sure you guys understand that they mean the same thing as the ones that are highlighted. So we're going to try to just use the highlighted vocabulary for the rest of the year. Okay? Main idea is the first one, and it should be at the top of your boxes. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Main idea? Okay. So the main idea is the first sentence in a body paragraph. Remember when we're referring to standard paragraph form, we're talking about body paragraphs, which are the middle paragraphs in your essays. The main idea is the first sentence in a body paragraph. It must have a subject and an opinion. Must have a subject and an opinion. Where did we hear a phrase that's similar to that before?
Thesis.
Your thesis. Your thesis has to have an opinion and a
fact.
Fact, absolutely. Do you guys remember when we did the writer's workshop stations? That station over there was on thesis, and I said you must have a fact as well as an opinion, hopefully an intriguing opinion. Do you guys remember that? Your thesis, if all you're writing is a one body paragraph, your thesis is kind of like your main idea. It's going to be at the start, okay? So again, it must have a subject and an opinion. However, never say I think, I feel, I know. Why do you think we're staying away from saying I? Why do you guys think we're like staying away from saying the word I? I think. I feel. It makes a weak argument, right? It sounds like it's just your opinion. And at the end of the day, do we have to agree with each other or believe in each other's opinions? No, right? We want to sound more assertive, and we also want to sound more objective. So we want to make sure that our audience knows that this isn't just our opinion. We want to try to sell it as best we can. When we say I think or I feel, it weakens your argument. So we want to stay away from the word I. Next, your main idea needs to state the main idea of the paragraph, what you will prove. Where do you figure out what you have to prove? Where do you get that information? The prompt, right? Absolutely. In the prompt, either the prompt from the test or the prompt that your teacher gives you, they're going to tell you exactly what to write about. Your main idea has to address that. You're going to bring it back in your main idea by bringing up that prompt and bringing up what you are going to prove. And that's where your subject and opinion come from. Any questions about that one? Okay. The next one is a big one. Those are your reasons and evidence. You guys used to maybe call them concrete details. They are composed of quite a bit. They're also referred to as the TLQCs. Concrete detail, reasons or evidence, those are quotes from the text. You must pull them from whichever text or text that you're working with, and you must cite them, right? You have to give the author credit. But before you just put in a quote, you need to kind of wrap it around with a lot of support. We can't just throw a quote out there, okay? So we're going to have a transitional phrase. We went over for example, that's the most common one. Some other ones are like for instance or in addition if it's the second one. Then you're going to have the lead-in. The lead-in is going to provide context. It's going to give the reader of your essay background information on where you pulled the quote from the story. After that, you're going to insert your quotation. Make sure you put it in quotation marks. And then finally, you're going to cite it correctly with the period after the parentheses. And we're going to dig into each of those a little bit more right now. So this slide is kind of quick, but we're going to dig into the meat of those. Remember that your reasons or evidence, otherwise known as your quotes, need to have all four every single time. And usually all four of those can be done in only one sentence. The TLQC should usually be one sentence long. All right, so let's get into the meat. So here are some more transitional phrases, like I said. For example is the most common one, but we're going to try to elevate our writing a little bit more this year. I'm going to keep these slides up on Google Classroom for you so that you can kind of help yourself out when you're learning which transitional phrases you can use to vary your paragraphs. Some examples are, in this case, such as if you're showing order, you can always do, previously, second, since, next, depending on where you're going with the flow of your essay. So this is just a handy slide to try to come up with some new transitional phrases. Okay, the lead-in. The lead-in is huge. The lead-in provides context and background information for the reader of your essay. It's a group of words that introduces an excerpt, and it helps the reader understand what's going on at this point in the story, who the speaker is and who they're talking to. You need to be able to, you need to be aware that you should never just drop a quote into a paragraph without giving a lead-in, because your reader of your essay will be completely lost. The best way that I can kind of give you guys an example is with gossip, right? Who doesn't love some good juicy gossip? So if you think about an acquaintance, somebody you know, maybe you don't know them well, but somebody you know comes up to you during lunch and they say, hey, I really like Bob. I'm hoping Bob asks me to homecoming this year, okay? So you hear that gossip, right? That girl Jan came up to you and she told you she liked Bob. She said, I really like Bob. I wanted to ask me to homecoming this year. So you have this piece of information in your head from Jan. Who automatically do you really want to tell? Bob, right? It's like human nature. Want to immediately go say, hey Bob, guess what Jan just told me? right? Can you guys imagine after school, Bob comes up to you and you haven't seen Bob in a few days, but what's on your mind? What's on your mind when you see Bob later that day? The gossip, what Jan said, right? Can you imagine going up to Bob and saying, I really like Bob, I hope he asks me to homecoming, and then you walk away? What would Bob think? You're a psycho, right? Because you're saying, I really like Bob instead of I really like you. It almost sounds like you like Bob, but you're talking in the third person-ish. It's weird. You guys agree?
Yes.
Usually when we spread gossip, we would give them context. We give people, naturally, lead-ins. We just do it automatically. We would say something like, hey Bob, today at lunch, Jan came up to me and she said, I really like Bob. I want him to take me to homecoming, right? We would give them that natural lead-in. That way Bob can make sense of the quote. He can make sense of what Jan said. But if all we do is throw the quote at him and walk away, he's going to be a little confused. The lead-in has the same exact purpose in your writing. If all you do is throw a quote at your reader, they're confused. They don't understand the background of the story. They don't understand where that quote came from. You need to give them the who and the what, or the speaker and the situation, in order for them to make sense of the quote. Again, you're going to give them the who and the what, or the speaker and the situation. Make sure that's in your notes. The lead-in has to provide the who and the what, or the speaker and the situation. You can't just throw a quote at your audience. Give them background information, give them context with a lead-in. Remember that no matter what, your lead-in is going to be in the same sentence as your quote. So it is a pretty hefty sentence, but your TLQC, transitional phrase, lead-in, quote, and citation are all one sentence. All right. What's the point of a lead-in, guys? Absolutely, it provides context for the reader to understand why you're pulling that quote, where the quote came from. Good. So we're gonna write a lead-in for the following quote on your papers right now. Find a space, I don't care where. The quote is, I love Mickey Mouse. Be creative. I'm gonna give you like 30 seconds. Give me the who and the what. Give me the lead-in that comes before the quote. The who and the what. We're just making it up. I think you all know who Mickey Mouse is. Mickey Mouse, the cartoon, Disneyland guy. Here's mine. After Minnie kissed Donald, she said, I love Mickey Mouse. Somebody give me yours.
That's
so twisted.
Give me yours. Somebody want to volunteer their lead-ins? My lead-in made you understand the quote, right? It gave you the situation, what was going on, who said it, and most of you probably weren't expecting me to write that. Some of you might have just written, Minnie said, I love Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you wrote about Minnie. Did anybody write about Donald?
No.
Pluto? Raise your hand if you wrote about like a student saying, I love Mickey Mouse. Okay, another way to go, absolutely. The lead-in changes everything. My sentence could have been, when she won Disneyland tickets on the radio, Brianna said, "I love Mickey Mouse." You understand how the lead-in changes the quote entirely?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's important to have a good, strong lead-in that gives a lot of background. Any questions about this one? All right. Sorry, my smartboard's all messed up. I know it's really hard to read. Okay, citation. This one's pretty simple as long as you know the formula. So the citation, after the quote, you're going to write the author's last name followed by the page or paragraph number followed by a period, depending on where your quote is in the sentence. So if it's a simple citation from something lengthier than like one page or a small article, you're going to give me the author's last name and the page number in parentheses with the period following the parentheses. Do not add a P, don't add their first and last name, don't add PG dot, just last name, page number, in parentheses. The period always goes outside of the parentheses. If it's only one short document, you can refer to it, instead of the page numbers, you can refer to it as, or refer to the specific paragraphs. In that case, you're going to give me the same thing, author's last name. Now you're going to give me PAR dot, that stands for paragraph, and then the paragraph number that you took the quote from in parentheses. And then obviously if you're finishing the sentence, you're going to do the same thing and add that period. Any questions? Citations need to look exactly like that. So if those examples are not in your notes, please get them in your notes quickly. Your citation has to look exactly like that. Explanation. Remember that the explanation comes from your brain only. You cannot copy it from somewhere else. What is that called if you copy an explanation from somewhere else?
Plagiarism.
Plagiarism. We want to refrain from doing that. So we want to make sure that the explanation only comes from your brain. It explains how the excerpt, whatever quote you pulled, supports your topic sentence or your main idea. And some examples are insight, analysis, inferences, reflection, and feelings. Do not summarize the quotes. A lot of times you guys will pull the quote. Let's take that "I love Mickey Mouse" quote, and you'll say, "This shows Minnie loves Mickey Mouse." All you're doing is rephrasing it. Instead, I want you to analyze it. Use the background information that you have, use the context, and explain how that matches up to the very top, to your main idea, and the prompt that your teacher or the test, let's say, is asking you to write about. So your explanation always needs to refer to the quote, but it always needs to reflect back to the prompt that you're writing about. Remember that we're using formal writing. No I, me, you, we, us. So no I think this shows, I think this means, I think this makes so-and-so feel. No I at all. Closing sentence. It's the last sentence in a body paragraph. It is all explanation. You cannot, should not, will not bring up new quotes in that last paragraph. It needs to just give a finished feeling to your whole paragraph and or essay, depending on how many paragraphs you're writing. It's kind of like the gift bow on top of the gift. It just makes it all look pretty and organized. That's the purpose of a closing sentence. It's just like a bow. You're not adding to the gift, right? You're not adding anything. It's just a bow to make it all come together. Alrighty, so again, standard body paragraph. You need to make sure that you stay in this order. We start with the main idea, then give reasons or evidence, an explanation. In this case, you're going to give reasons and evidence again because you're writing a two-quote body paragraph, and then some more explanation, and a closing sentence. Remember that for each quote, you have to have at least 2 to 3 sentences of explanation. That comes from your brain. So every time you pull a quote and you give me the TLQC, you need to follow that up with 2 to 3 sentences from your brain. Make sure that anytime you write a paragraph, it is in MLA format. There's an example for you on Google Slides. And I think that's it. Let me stop the recording and I'll answer your questions.